Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster. Today, our topic is, was Floyd Mayweather the greatest of all time? If you ask Floyd, there's no doubt he was the greatest of all time. But today, we're going to take a little bit more in-depth look, and we're going to compare his career to the career of three all-time greats, Henry Armstrong, Sugar Ray Robinson, and Sugar Ray Leonard. Now, when we look at the career of Floyd Mayweather, there's no doubt one of the greatest fighters that ever lived. He claims to be a five-division champion. That claim we'll look at today a little bit because things were a little bit different. Number one, there's 17 weight classes today. There was 8 back in when Sugar Ray Robinson was fighting. And we must first establish how many divisions he was the true champion in. We're going to examine each one of those 5 divisions right now, and then we're going to compare him to all-time greats and see where this falls out. I want to remind everybody that's watching, make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell notification button on YouTube, and click on the Bet MGM icon to be able to go ahead and bet on any of the fights you want to bet. Bet MGM is a great place to bet. All right, guys, we're going to start off. We're going to look at the first division he was to win a championship in, and that's the super featherweight division. And when you look at that, it's worth noting that this division, along with the others, junior and super ones, were late to the game and were seen as synthetic when guys like Henry Armstrong fought. So to begin with, all these divisions, super divisions, are BS. And there's also 4 champions in every division nowadays. And the best fighters that Floyd beat here was the champion Genaro Hernandez, who was a solid fighter, but whose main claim to fame was beating an old Azuma Nelson. He then beat Diego Corrales. Now, beating Hernandez did make him the lineal champion in a weak, made-up division, but ultimately he was the true lineal champion. So we will give that to Floyd, which I'm sure Floyd doesn't care what I give to him or not. Now, when we go to lightweight, Mayweather was beaten in his first lightweight title fight against Jose Luis Castillo. But, of course, the decision was given to Mayweather. He did come back and beat Castillo in the rematch clearly. The winner of Castillo made him the lightweight champion. But even though he was considered a true champion in these 2 divisions by today's standards, can he be an all-time great? I mean, come on, it's not even close. When you look at the 2 divisions, they were so weak when Floyd reigned. It would be hard to imagine Jose Luis Castillo hanging with Esteban de Jesus or the late Ken Buchanan, much less a Roberto Duran. Now, when we move along and we look at the junior lightweight division, junior lightweight, as most of Floyd's resume is very small. So when we go to the junior welterweight, junior lightweight, whatever you want to call it, I mean, it's junior welterweight. But Mayweather's only claim here is beating a limited Arturo Gatti. Mayweather was never the lineal champion at junior welterweight, so you can strike that division as being one of his championships. So through 3 weight classes, the best Mayweather has beaten was Diego Corrales, who was a very good fighter, but by no means an all-time great. Now, when we transition over to welterweight, it gets a little bit more interesting because, number one, you had a man in Mayweather who would not fight Antonio Margarito. He stayed away from Paul Williams as far as he could. Both of those guys stylistically, especially Paul Williams, could have really given him trouble. Now, what he did accomplish at welterweight, he became the true lineal champion. But there are still some problems with that. Number one, he beat Juan Manuel Marquez. And Marquez is a great fighter, all-time great fighter. But it was his first time fighting at welterweight. Mayweather came in overweight to give himself even more of an advantage. Now, that means the way these divisions are set up, 135, Marquez was the champion. He had to move up 12 pounds to 147 to fight welterweight, and that was with no tune-up fights, which Floyd did not want Marquez to have. Now, he then beat Ricky Manhattan, which would have been a much better win if he would have fought Manhattan at his best weight at junior welterweight, 140 pounds. And let's not forget that dud of a super fight that was the Manny Pacquiao contest. So while he was the best at his division, once again, the competition was not very good. So now we'll move on to junior middleweight. And at junior middleweight, we still have issues because we always do with Floyd. And at junior middleweight, beating Oscar De La Hoya couldn't have given him a true claim to the title, especially when Oscar was 2-2 in his previous 4 fights. And in all actuality, he lost to Felix Sturm, which made him 1-3 in his 4 previous fights. Now, a win over Miguel Cotto gives him a legit claim, but Cotto, while a hell of a fighter, is not an all-time great either. Then you have a win over Canelo Alvarez, which is another solid win. Everybody says Canelo was young. I'm not going to fall for that. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to give Floyd major credit for that. He dominated Canelo. He won that fight. So now we're going to do something a little bit more interesting. We're going to compare the greatness of Sugar Ray Leonard, or Sugar Ray Leonard, Sugar Ray Robinson, and Floyd Mayweather all together and see who comes out best. We're going to start off by comparing Floyd Mayweather to Henry Armstrong. Now, Henry Armstrong should be considered a legit 4 divisions champ by the standards of his time. Factoring in the robbery that took place at his middleweight bout against Seferino Garcia, on an interesting side note, while Mayweather was having Marquez come up 2 classes, Armstrong weighed in as a welterweight for his middleweight title fight against the larger Garcia, still dominated Garcia, who was an excellent fighter. You couldn't have got Floyd Mayweather even in the proximity of Gennady Golovkin, the middleweight champion for a lot of his reign. Now, when taking into consideration the expansion of super and junior weight classes in the modern era, Armstrong would be a 7 division champion in today's era. And by champion, this does not mean that Armstrong would hold one piece of the title and call himself the champion like Mayweather could do. No, it means Armstrong, by today's standards, would have been the true champion in 7 weight classes. Armstrong was the undisputed champion at every weight in a much tougher era. This is without taking into account that Armstrong fought an average of once a month, sometimes more. Not only that, but instead of fighting guys like Andre Berto and Robert De Ghost Guerrero, Armstrong was beating guys like Fritzy Zivic and Barney Ross. I don't think that Mayweather could compare to an all-time great like Henry Armstrong. I don't even think it's close. Now, let's get maybe more ridiculous. We're going to compare Sugar Ray Robinson to Floyd Mayweather. Now, this may be the dumbest comparison yet. And Ray Robinson dominated from 135 to 175. He defeated Sammy Engat, the great lightweight champion at the time. But Engat's title was not on the line. If not for a heat stroke, Robinson would have beaten champion Joey Maxim at 175. Also, if that fight's a 12-round fight the way it is today instead of 15 rounds, Sugar Ray Robinson would have won that title at light heavyweight. Now, by those standards, that amounts to 4 legitimate divisional titles. By today's standards, including the additional super junior weight classes, Robinson would have a claim to a 7-division legitimate champion, not factoring into watered-down competition in today's era when men like Broner, Ortiz, and Guerrero could be considered legit belt holders. This also ignores that Ray Robinson fought 12 times a year in his prime against some of the greatest welterweights and middleweights of all time. Think about how far Mayweather is behind Robinson. When you really look at it, Mayweather would have had to beat the likes of Gamboa, Crawford, Garcia, beat Hatton at 140, maybe Kostya Tszyu in there, moved up to defeat Pacquiao, Bradley at 147, beaten Golovkin and Martinez at 160, and then hung with Bernard Hopkins or Andre Ward around 175 to even be remotely considered in this conversation. And you could bet your ass Floyd would have never attempted to do anything like that. And he wouldn't even have considered fighting a guy like Triple G. Now, another really stupid comparison to me, but we're going to make it just for you, Sugar Ray, or just for you, Floyd Mayweather nut huggers. We're going to compare Floyd to Sugar Ray Leonard. Once again, no comparison. Ray beat Roberto Duran 2 out of 3. One time he made him quit. He beat Wilfred Benitez, who was a very underrated welterweight champion. He beat Tommy Hearns. Now, he beat Tommy Hearns by doing something Floyd Mayweather would have never been able to do, and that was by becoming the aggressive slugger. He was behind on points, and he knocked out Hearns in the 14th round while behind on points. And Sugar Ray Leonard went from the boxer at the start of the fight to the puncher, the guy who was hunting his prey by the end of that fight. But then he moved up to middleweight and won a disputed decision over Marvin Hagler, which he did deserve. It was a close fight that could have went either way. Sugar really controlled the first half of that fight. And then he moved up and fought at 168 against a light heavyweight title holder, Donnie Lalonde. Now, he made Lalonde move down from his original 175, but I don't think that there would have been an offer from Floyd Mayweather to fight Bernard Hopkins if Hopkins would have moved down to 168, just a guess. He knocked out Lund in the ninth round while behind by a point on the cards. Once again, no comparison. So Floyd beat no all-time greats in their prime. And at 154, he ducked guys like Antonio Margarito and Paul Williams. So if you truly believe Floyd is the greatest of all, you also likely think Mike Tyson would have knocked out Muhammad Ali. And all of this means, in the end, you know absolutely nothing about boxing. But if you'd like to learn, you can follow me on The Grueling Truth, at Grueling Truth. Make sure you like, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out the links for Bet MGM for betting on all the fights coming up. But for now, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been watching and listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.